Hey, everybody. Welcome to another How to Succeed podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague, Director of Community Engagement at Sandler. And my guest this week is Chad Burmeister, founder of BDR AI and the AI for Sales podcast host. So we're going to be talking all about artificial intelligence for sales. The following podcast is copyrighted by Sandler Systems, Inc. and protected by U.S. copyright laws. Sandler is the worldwide leader in sales, management, and customer service training. Find more information at sandler.com. And don't forget, subscribe to the podcast anywhere that you are listening to it, or share it with anybody that you think needs to hear it. We're talking about how to succeed at AI for sales. Chad, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with AI for sales. It's a hot topic. We just had like 4,000 people sign up for our ChatGPT for salespeople webinar, and I'm really excited to dive in deeper with you.
Well, Mike, thanks so much for having me. It takes me, when you said how to succeed, I remember the business, how to succeed in business without really trying. It was a Matthew Broderick play on Broadway that I saw very early in my 20s.
It's the only thing still ranking higher than my podcast, Chad. So thanks for bringing it up.
Well, I'm sorry to say, but with AI, it's not quite that easy yet, because how to succeed in business while trying to leverage AI to its best, most potential is kind of where we're at. So a lot of people, I'll get the elephant in the room question out right up front. And that is, am I going to lose my job? Do I need to fear it? And my son asked me that question because he's an engineer leaving school soon at Colorado School of Mines. And he said, Dad, should I be worried about this? And a very smart person told me recently on the podcast, said, AI is not going to replace your job, but someone who knows how to use AI properly could replace you. So understanding how to use the genie in the bottle and let the genie out of the bottle in a way that's not spooky and adds humanization. I mean, that's the fine balance that we need to be talking about on AI for sales.
I love that. Obviously, that's our perspective here at Sandler. And there's a lot of things that AI could mean. So before we get into that, I want to ask you specifically more about the attitude for salespeople, because you've already hinted at one big one, that kind of there's a difference between humans and what AI and automation can do these days. And there are positives and negatives to both of those. Humans can be unpredictable, and AI can be too robotic and too predictable and stuff. So what do you think the ideal attitude for a leader? Let's talk specifically about like a CRO. If you're sitting here, or a CEO of an organization, what should be your philosophy towards AI and really sales or any part of your business?
So in the book, AI for Sales, that I wrote in 2019, Dr. Joel Laban from Johns Hopkins University, the MBA for salespeople, I think it's still the only MBA in the country for salespeople. There's some undergrads, but not MBAs. And he was quoted saying, in sales, time kills deals. In AI for sales, AI kills time. So wrapping your mind around how can AI kill time? What does that mean exactly? And there's so many applications. If you're a CRO, who are you targeting? What are you saying to them? What's the best mode of communication? Phone, email, social outreach? There's just so many questions. But if you keep that in mind at the forefront, AI kills time. Man, I'm seeing so many examples of this. Let's give you one example. I meet with someone in Utah a couple of weeks ago, and they give me their Gmail account. And I've worked with people who use a Gmail account, and I'm like, what's your website? Oh, I don't have one. Okay, why not? Well, I just don't have time. I don't have the money. I don't know. So I said, have you heard of Mixo.io? No. So I go, well, let's just go in right now. And I say, tell me what you do. And I answer, and it only allows about 2 sentences, because if you give it too much data, it doesn't need that much data. All it needs is a little bit. So we go in and we answer questions. Within about 60 to 90 seconds, a fully optimized SEO powered website is available with images. And he goes, I don't know if I like image 3. Okay, let's hit refresh. And then it goes to the web and it scours and pulls in the next 3 images. So my point is, that was taking him a long time. It was holding him up from ever doing business as an entrepreneur. He had just left his day job 2-3 months prior. He could have had to go back and find a regular job. Instead, it's like, no, wait, there's AI that can help you collapse the time, put your business. And by the way, let's move you up from a Gmail account to a abc.co account. Let's get your real company.
There you go, for sure. And I think all of that for sales too is creating presentations now, whether it's Tome or something else, or writing emails and scripts and all kinds of good stuff, creating your sales playbook really in just that amount of time. Just a few minutes with the right inputs can be really good. I guess the other question I always get that I think we should start with is, where are we today? We're recording this here in June of 2023. And you've been doing this for a while now. The podcast has been running 4 years. You mentioned the book came out, 3 or 4 years ago. Where are we somewhere between, let's say, if 1970s, computer automation is zero, and let's say, fully autonomous robot salespeople selling everything, maybe also selling to robot buyers, is like a 10. Where are we on this development scale, would you say?
I think things are going to happen faster than they've happened. Just like when you look at, memory, I can't remember the term, but,
the Moore's law. Yeah. The doubling every 18 months. Yeah.
So that's going to apply to what we're talking about here, right?
But it's not 18 months anymore. NVIDIA, the graphics chip, said they applied AI and they've increased the speed of their graphics 1,000 times in the last 6 months. So rather than just doubling every 18 months, it's increasing it 1,000 times in 6 months with artificial intelligence. Now that's a crazy big jump.
So the speed of change is so immensely fast right now. I just met a guy named Matt Kretzmann. He came to the Indy 500 with the company we were there with, and there were 23 attendees, him and his wife. And he runs a company called Unleash Stormbreaker Technologies. So he helps sports teams use LinkedIn outreach and other tools to go out and get into the market. Well, he was planning to host the SaaS Talk event. He was the MC in Austin, Texas. And he goes, "You're not going to believe this. I asked ChatGPT to write me a very complete opening song for the event." And he showed me the prompts and he posted it on LinkedIn. So we could put that in the show notes. And it's a very complex ask. Like, let's shout out Nathan Latka. There's different sponsors, and do it in a tone that's country and everything. So the AI generated it very quickly. He then sends it to a company that actually did physical, human-based recording, both audio and the music. And then he was disappointed. He's like, I really need this to be fully AI. And this was on Sunday at the Indy 500, and his event's on Thursday. And I'm like, he's in a pipe dream. There's no way he's going to go take what he's already done and redo it by the time that event kicks off on Thursday morning. And he did. And so he sent me the video. He goes, "Hey, check this out." I ended up getting it. And the AI powered audio was as good or better than the human powered audio. So when we talk about how far are we, it's as far as your mind will allow you to go. That's the limitation, because the technology is out there. All of the pieces of the technology are quickly getting deployed. The question in my mind is, who puts it all together under one instance? Because right now we're in this proliferation, just like when CRM came out and then there were all those plugins. We're going to be in an AI crazed world for the next few years till there's a roll up.
Every SaaS application has added an AI ChatGPT component to it in the last 6 months. If they haven't already, it's coming in the next 6 months, which is nuts. Two things you reminded me of there that I think are important. Number one, now that there are self-driving cars, there will eventually be a country song where a guy's truck leaves him. So we got that to look forward to. And good. Two, he had to come up with the idea for the song. So the creativity, the humanness of that was the prompt writing, not the execution of the idea. But I don't think we're at the point where maybe AI or any other thing is creating that moment of connection or designing the experience of what he wants to pull off at this conference, and the mood and the tone of what he was creating. I think that's a great example of, we still need the human magic, but then that execution happens so much faster and automated, and sometimes even just improved or enhanced either by AI, humans, or both.
Pam Didner, you've probably heard of, did a very good talk, opening keynote at an event in Arizona about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And she said, as AI proliferates and becomes a big deal, who wears the pants in the AI family? And that's a good question, because you could easily be at the beck and call of the AI, or you can control the AI. And what side do you want to be on? So I thought that was pretty interesting perspective in the 60 minutes that she talked.
Yeah, no, I think that takes us to our behavior bucket here of doing the right thing at the right time. So I think you've told me about a demo where there are robo salespeople that can make calls with AI and have conversations and sell stuff completely without human interaction. There's also maybe people that are just going, say, 99% human, but they're using big data to leverage insights and things, and AI feeding maybe like a CRM, feeding prompts or something to the salespeople on the other side. Where do you feel like we are now, and what is the ideal situation maybe in the near future of the balance between humans and AI?
So let's go back to Ring Central circa, it feels like yesterday, but it's probably been way too many years, like 8 or 9 years since I was doing this. But when they brought me in, they said, Chad, we know you're an expert at inbound, outbound, all things SDR, BDR. Can you help us? And the business problem to solve is that they're spending $1 million a quarter on inbound leads. And they said, in order for us to build an outbound team, we really need to pay for it with a better conversion rate of the inbounds. So, you give me a Rubik's Cube with 4 squares on it and I'll figure it out. Like, let's go, right? So my first step was, let's call leads in under 5 seconds, like not 5 minutes. Let's go for 5 seconds. And that was because Eric Lewis, the head of demand gen at the time, really was pushing for that level of fidelity. And then we built a cadence that would handle, multiple calls, emails, but that real time and personalization. Factor 8 did some help with us on some inbound. How do you handle an inbound call? So we really got it honed. When I got there, we had an 8% conversion rate. After 90 days, we had an 18% conversion rate on inbound leads. So fast forward to 2023. If I were brought into the next company to do this, which there's a handful of conversations to go do this right now.
BDR.ai, reach out to
Check
Chad
out
Burmeister.
BDR.ai, and someday SDR.ai, because we own that URL as well. But for the inbound seller, when someone fills out that web form, imagine a phone call that's a very pleasant voice. Imagine if that phone call was mapped based on your personality of how you liked to be talked to. Maybe you've got a certain accent. Maybe you speak a little slower or faster than everybody else. So think of a day when you could have a one-to-one, or at least a grouping of people that meet a certain criteria. So rather than, oh, you're in Dallas and I got you as a lead, I'm going to call you. But if you align this AI-powered conversation bot, this company that I'm doing some work with is called Vocodia, Vocodia, and they call it a DISA, a digital sales assistant. And so the digital sales assistant never shows up late. They always do what they're asked. They can be programmed with the most perfectly fine-tuned ability to handle objections. So when I've trained people at Connect and Sell as the head of sales and marketing, and we call the biggest problem that Chris Beal and I saw is something that we call drift, and not the chat company drift, but drift as in human drift, right? I teach you something just like in golf. You go out to the range and you're hitting them right down the middle. And then 3 days later, what happened, Chad? You're hitting them off to the right. And so same thing when you work with an AI powered machine, it can be very well perfected. It can't, to your point about creativity, that's not going to go to a point where it can do very complex reasoning anytime soon. But that's where a trigger will occur on that inbound lead. That they're talking. They're like, well, how much does it cost? Oh, well, what are you looking at? You can train it to handle objections, and then when it hits a trigger point, like we'll do this in a demo from time to time, and it'll say peas, carrots, knees and toes, or some, and then the bot's like, wait, what? And then it'll instantly show in the demo, boom, trigger. And then you could have it call a hunt group, an individual, however you want to route that. So my belief is for inbound calls, and we're seeing this play out, 80% of inbound calls can now be handled, or website downloads, white paper downloads can be handled by AI. And then only 20% or less will actually be escalated to a real person.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting concept and an interesting way to think about it. Recent studies have shown that like only 28% of buyers want to talk to a salesperson, and they want automation and being able to buy online and things for most purchases anyway. But when we do want to talk to a person, we've all gotten to that point where we're frustrated and we want to talk to a person. We want someone available. And I think that will always exist in some form. But I like the idea of making it efficient for both sides, that maybe we don't need salespeople answering that first phone call or having the first 45 minutes of that conversation. Maybe it's the
or
last,
maybe you have a
or the
list
sales cycle, whatever it
top
is.
1,000 accounts, and those are carved
Yeah.
out. They will never talk to the AI because we really want to have those handled differently. So there's a lot of rules-based things. I've now generated the Chad bot. So I've uploaded 30 minutes of my podcasting audio one-sided, and I heard my own voice talk to me, and it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I can't wait to try that too, because there's enough recordings of me on podcasts here after 600 episodes that we can definitely fake my voice, and then I can just take the rest of the year off. That sounds great.
Well, if you can duplicate yourself and clone yourself to be in multiple places at a time, the test that we're about to launch is United Airlines. All the airlines have a need for a DISA, right? A digital sales assistant, because when there's bad weather or stuff happens and you're on hold time for 90 minutes, would you rather wait 90 minutes to talk to a human, or would you rather talk to somebody who has some level of authority, by the way, instantly? And by the way, all you have to do is turn on the light switch and you have 20,000 agents, DISAs, that are enabled instantly. So traditionally, you have to staff for the middle, right? You don't staff for the worst case scenario, and that's why you end up in the situation that you end up in. And so with a DISA, you can even contract for failover to say, hey, in the worst case scenario, we just need to have our switch hooked up so that we have somebody. And again, if you can get it to 80% success rate. So the chatbot's going, we're connecting with people on LinkedIn, operations people, and it's already in process. And within a few days to a week of the time they connect, the call's going to go something like this, powered by the chatbot. Hey, Mike, thanks so much for connecting with me on LinkedIn. This is Chad Burmeister, Vice President of North American Sales from Vacodia. Since we connected on LinkedIn, I'm calling to find out, are you still looking into artificial intelligence inside of your contact center so that you could use technology like you're using right now with me on the call? Is that still of interest to you? Yeah. What are you going to say to that, right? I've already stated we connected on LinkedIn, so it lowers the barrier of resistance a little bit. And then I admit that it's an AI pretty quickly in the first 30 seconds. And then, hey, would you like, do you have any questions that I can answer? Or if you'd like, I can pass you through to the human version of myself.
That's a little crazy. I haven't received one of those. I don't know how it would go, but I'm imagining that if you're interested, you're probably okay with it, right? If you're not interested, you'll probably find that annoying. I worry about my own personal algorithm, right? You already get retargeting ads if you click on something. So I always got to make sure that I, use incognito browser if I want to search for something I don't want to be pursued on. But I can imagine if every company had it, you could be getting a lot of robocalls. But There's something interesting here, and I think that brings us to our technique bucket. It was, I know you've looked at all the different types of AI tools. So we're talking largely about AI tools that, do some of the things that salespeople do. But there's a lot of tools that do things that salespeople don't do, like looking at huge amounts of data or buyer intelligence or watching for call signals when you're sleeping, that maybe somebody opens that email or they click on your website or they don't open the email, or that email got forwarded to 100 other people at a large organization. There's a lot of data that you could get from AI that you cannot get from humans. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe some of the AI tools that are available or coming very soon for things that salespeople have no capability of even doing themselves?
Well, so the term intent data has now been around 3 to 5 years. And I think, some people probably still have a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth because, oh, it was really hard to prove and I'm not sure. And I ran into one in a platform. It's called Infotelligent. And I love them because number one, they have the most mobile cell phone coverage that I've found on planet Earth, better than some of the players in the market that have been there for a long time. So that's neat. Number two, they have 3 different signals. Bambora is one, and then a couple of others that I hadn't even heard of. So by aggregating this data, and then, we worked with the head at a company called Informatica, you've probably heard of. We met with one of their top people and built the report based on some of the signals that they're looking for, and built them a list of 997 accounts. And it was, hey, what if you use this list? And then not only that, but now follow this thread. What if you could look at the top executives inside of a company and find out who they're connected to inside of those 1,000 accounts? And then ask the executives for a warm introduction to the people that have the high propensity to buy. When you couple that kind of data, you're not getting like a 2x lift. It's like the 1,000 times increase that you talked about a little earlier, because you're now coupling the power of finding the right person and coupling a better message. And then, by the way, once I send the message, that's where you ask ChatGPT, hey, can you go ahead? Because this is one-to-one kind of stuff. This is not press a button and it all happens. So Brian would go in and ask the question, hey, go read their latest annual report or their quarterly report. Like, let's really get sophisticated on what I'm going to say. So pretty neat.
I think that's the amazing stuff. So maybe
point out, I've conflated a few different clients in here. So I want to point out, this is not the Informatica playbook, but certainly the intent signal information is part of the playbook.
Well, yeah. And I think we got where right now there's a lot of separate tools, but there's going to have to be some, coalition of all of these, because you could see where you could use, Zoom Info or Informatica information to get the right person. But then you could use something like Humantic AI, which is a partner of ours, to get that buyer's personality profile and customize the message that way. You could use ChatGPT to summarize their annual report to come up with their top pain points or talk tracks for them. And then you could use another tool to craft that message or outreach, or some of the ones that you've shown me as well are tools that will take all of that data and then automate your voice or your scripts to match that, so that you don't have to record all 100 different prospects, or you said 1,000, right? 997 prospects. You record that message and help it craft the first script, and then it duplicates what you did for the other 996 prospects. And then you're responding to like, you could see where these start piling on top of each other, and like you said, getting exponential.
Well, and I'm giving you some advanced power tools, 401 conversation. Right. If I rewind it back to, okay, what's available here and now that's easy for everyone, that's where I look at LinkedIn prospecting technology. The traditional vendors, if you look at Yesware and ToutApp way back in the day, right? TK Cater runs an amazing business accelerator these days. And the email first was a strategy that used to work. In today's world, email first is a losing strategy. It just is. You'd have to send 10,000 messages for a couple of good ones, and 98%, 92% would opt out in the process. So why would you do email first? I don't get it. But when you do LinkedIn first and you do it correctly, 1,000 connection requests in a month or two, you should get anywhere from 400 to 600, as high as 800 that connect. If you do it really with the pro skill set on, because you're finding the right people that need you. And a lot of people just spray and pray, and that's not the way to do LinkedIn properly. And then once they connect, this is where an amazing capability, it's a video that automatically can go out in a one-to-many, but it feels like a one-to-one. So being able to use those kinds of power tools, I'm working with some of the neatest companies out there, connecting them to their target market at scale. And instead of paying $8,000 a month for a BDR, a couple $100. So it's a lot better cost savings with a lot higher return on investment.
Yeah, I had one other thought here, and then we'll wrap up, get your final thoughts on how we tie all these together: attitude, behavior, technique. What are maybe some of the next steps? Again, we're talking with Chad Burmeister, founder of BDR.ai. You can find him at that website, or check out the AI for Sales podcast, wherever you're listening or watching this one. My thought was also, I think you're focused on the BDR prospecting part of it. And I think naturally a lot of businesses and salespeople are, but there's also the deal analytics, and we're working with Octus IQ and some other partners on those later triggers and the later customizations or predictability forecasting for any CRO will get them fired if they're wrong. And it's like the bane of their existence, because you're just taking salespeople's word for it. But if you had 27 different, metrics that were, cobbled together with big data and analyzed by AI, and it's giving you a sliding scale from day to day or minute to minute based on who's responded, who hasn't responded, the tonality. There's people looking video recordings now, AI looking at micro expressions during the call to tell you like green light or red light when you're losing people during a sales pitch. It could be giving you instantaneous feedback on whether these deals are going well or south. That type of stuff is really crazy and coming in the really near future. So final thoughts from you on maybe where this is heading or anything that we've missed so far?
It's accelerating beyond our wildest imagination. So I believe whether you're sourcing data, whether you're doing calls, whether you're following up on emails, every single part of the sales interaction will be affected. So if you're not paying attention, just like they say in the movie, life is short. If you don't stop to take a look around, you could miss it. And that's the same thing with AI. You got to slow down the tape sometime, listen to podcasts like this one and AI for Sales podcast, and learn from the people who are living on the cutting edge and bleeding edge of this kind of technology. And I think you'll be better off for it.
Well, 10 points for starting with the Matthew Broderick reference and then closing with the Ferris Bueller quote as well.
I'm glad you caught
that. All right. Just a couple of minutes left here, but I wanted to get to know you a little bit better. At this point in your career, how do you define success? What does success look like for you?
Ooh, that is a long one, because I just hit the big 5-0 mark. So it's the halfway point. I went to Super Bowl 50, and so I'm looking at life now in a different way. And someone told me he's a neurotheologist. And the guy came to my fire pit. His name's Dr. Jim Wilder. And he's written some neat books on neurotheology. And I asked him, making good choices and things. And I said, well, what does one do? Right. And he gave me an answer that really intrigued me and has caused me to think things differently. And he said, when you make decisions in your life, if you could make decisions to optimize for eternity, like the end of time, that's how you should be making decisions at this point in your life. And so if you look at, I've always done 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10-year plans. So imagine an infinity plan. How would you change? So when I think of things like the genie in the bottle called AI, and I think of Elon Musk's post enlisting 1,000 people saying, put a pause on this tape, he's saying that for a reason, because if you don't think with the end in mind, then we're going to have unethical decisions that get written into the code. And we need to have a new term, the chief ethics officer, a CEO that's a chief ethics officer. And America needs it. The world needs it, because who gets to make that kind of a decision? So that's where my head's at for the long term. I don't always make great decisions that are optimized for eternity, but I sure try to put that in my mind to make decisions.
I like it. I'll go down that rabbit hole with you. We might, reach singularity in our lifetimes and stuff. So who knows? You better start optimizing and be nice to your Google and Alexa, because they might be controlling you later.
Yeah. I mean, when you ask ChatGPT, when was the last time you said please?
There you go. I feel like you better be nice to the AI. All right, that'll wrap us up, Chad. Thanks for joining us again. Chad Burmeister, founder of BDR.ai, and go check out the AI for Sales podcast right now. I was over there as a guest, so you can hear my take on AI and where we are in sales over there. Too. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. The How to Succeed podcast is brought to you by Sandler, the worldwide leader in sales management and customer service training with over 200 locations. So if you need more information on Sandler, go to sandler.com. A lot of free resources. We've done 2 webinars on AI with thousands of people attending. A couple of other podcasts on AI for sales too, if you search our backlog, and an awesome white paper, top prompts, for salespeople, available in our free resources at Sandler.com. Until next time, whatever you are, be a good one. That's what I always say. Hey, everybody.